this forum. Those of you who watched the service this morning saw me introduce our speaker this morning. She's not with us this afternoon, but I hope people were impressed or had some thoughts about her presentation. A little bit about myself. I am a retired asylum officer. I worked for the government for 25 and a half years as an asylum officer. I retired in 2017. Before that, I worked in refugee resettlement for 12 and a half years. When I started with the government, it was the INS at that point. Boo, INS, boo. And one of the early trainers who helped us try to learn our job, said that immigration law is as complicated as tax law. So many of us can file a simple tax return and not have any problems, but other people end up with a whole lot of tax problems or they can use tax loopholes, or they can move money into tax havens or whatever. So immigration law is as complicated as tax law. So some of what you'll hear this afternoon and what we heard this morning is a real example of just how complicated immigration can be. So our first speaker is Jorge Harrow, who's going to talk about his own journey through the immigration process, his journey and life here in the US.
Yes. Okay. Hi, my name is Jorge Harrow, and I would like to thank you for the invitation, and also thank you for your time and attention. Nancy Valencia invited me, so I would like to share my story, but also I do apologize for my funny accent. I learned English as an adult, and also I had practice. One day I went to a dentist, and he was practicing with me for a root canal. He pinched my nerve, so half of my lip, the bottom lip, is numb. So even when my wife is going to give me a kiss, I say, try to do it on the left side so I can feel you, because on the right side I do not feel anything. It's numb. So some words I have problems to pronounce. So okay, so I'm gonna share my story with you, and I title it Illegally Crossing to United States. On March 29, 1978, my oldest brother Lupi, 25 other people, and me from Santa Rosa, Zacatecas, Mexico, we all decided to come to United States illegally, seeking for a better life. When we got to Tijuana, various corrupted police officers were waiting for us at the bus station, affirming that we all were illegal Central Americans. They loaded us in 5 vehicles, pretending taking us to the 8th police station. On the way, the corrupted chief officer started negotiating that if we all pay them 500 pesos each, they will let us free. The negotiation ended up in 250 pesos each. After this assault, we all had enough money to eat chicken necks in El Mercado de Tijuana. That was the cheapest meal. That same day at night, we intended to cross the frontier. So we walked on the hills and bushes for about 6 hours. Then the coyote told us that we were going into a house to wait until there was no inspection in San Clemente from the Border Patrol. On the way to the house, Silvino asked the coyote for the key of the house. The coyote answered him, "What key? What key? Just get inside." To our surprise, there was no house. It was only a small canopy, 4 feet tall by 10 square feet wide. It was made of cardboard. The weather was very cold and we all tried to get some sleep. Few minutes later, a guy started screaming that he had felt a snake. So we all got up very scared for a snake bite. One of the guys turned on a match to light up the really dark place. To our surprise, they were not snakes. They were rats the size of bunny rabbits. So we stay up all night long. During the day, our meal was 2 slices of bread, 1 slice of bologna, and 6 ounces cup of Kool-Aid once a day. I remember that other coyotes came offering us rotisserie chickens if we all go with them. Our coyote kicked them out and told us that they were liars, that all coyotes were providing the same meal as him. Finally, after 5 days of being in that place, the border inspection was free in San Clemente. The coyote started loading us in few vehicles. He wanted to send me in the trunk, but my brother Lupe fought for me not to get in the trunk. Lupe was lying on the back seat, and Silvino and I were lying on the floor of the car, and I was with Silvino's feet on top of my head. So we traveled like this from Oceanside to East LA. When we got to East LA, I couldn't feel my body for the traveling position. The coyote took us to his mother's house. The lady was a very nice person. She fed us with delicious fried beans, chiles jalapeños, and lasa tortillas. We felt in heaven. The next day, the coyote started delivering us, first making sure that he'll get his $400 fee. My dad, my uncle Enrique, and my auntie Maria were inspecting us in Redondo Beach. When we got there, my auntie Maria said, "Are you George or what's left over from George?" I was skinny complexion, and imagine eating that small meal for 5 days, I was more skinny. My auntie made a bad joke. She was trying to be funny, but I didn't like it. Next day, my dad took us to look for a job. I was 15 years old. For my young age and not speaking English, I didn't find one. My father decided to bring us to Watsonville, California. There were lots of jobs picking strawberries. So that was my first job in the United States. After 2 months, I collected enough money to pay the $400 fee for the coyote. Then I started sending money to my mother and 3 younger brothers in Mexico. God has blessed me with a beautiful wife and 4 children. Jorge and Jaime attend Cal State Long Beach. Jorge for business administration, and Jaime wants to be a math teacher. Sofia goes to Cabrillo High School, and Angel goes to Washington Middle School. All 4 were born in Long Beach, 2 at St. Mary's and 2 at Memorials. My wife and I became a naturalized US citizens. We are so grateful to God for being in this country. God bless United States of America. Also, I wrote 3 of the main reasons why we leave our country. The first reason is the lack of jobs. The second reason is the lack of opportunities for professionists. There's a lot of people in my town that they were professionals, but there were no jobs. They end up picking up strawberries in Watsonville, California. So, and the third reason is the abuse and the non-single kind of help from the Mexican government to their people. That was the three main reasons we leave the country. And here in the United States, I call it the blessed country. First, many jobs available. Second, good job opportunities for professionals. Third, the US government really helps and takes care of their people. It's all the opposite from Mexico. I've been in the country for 43 years, working without interruption. My first job for 1 year was picking strawberries in Watsonville. My second job for 2 years was cleaning at Rebel's Bakery in Torrance, California. My third job for 22 years, I worked as a cake decorator at Myers Bakery in Palos Verdes, California. My fourth job for 15 years, I was a cake decorator at Sam's Club in Gardena, Stanton, and Torrance. And my present and actual job for a little over 3 years as a cake decorator at Bonds Bixby Knolls in Long Beach. And this is my actual job. So if you ever need a cake, don't hesitate, come to see me. I've been so many years in the cake business. So thank you very much. And again, God bless United States of America. We're so grateful to be in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful story. We're not sure if Lilia Ocampo is going to be able to join us. She was going to talk about the impact of being undocumented in this society. She evidently wasn't feeling well this morning, and Nancy had tried to see if she could join us. She was going to try, but we don't think she's joined us. So Nancy, are you prepared now to talk about days? We'll skip ahead to talk about the role of the days, Long Beach, in the local community.
If it's okay, I'll weave a little bit of Lilia into the days portion as well. I met Lilia several years ago. She introduced me to her twins, a boy and a girl, who are now in 6th grade, entering 6th grade. And I believe they were in 2nd grade when I first met her. And Lilia is very involved in a variety of programs in the city. She's an advocate in CAC, which is the Community Advisory Committee, where parents across the district meet to discuss issues related to their children who are on individual evaluation plans, IEPs, oftentimes receiving services inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And she has become the president of CAC, which is an arm of the Long Beach Unified School District, and approximately 100 to 125 families from across the city attend monthly meetings. When COVID came 18 months ago, I reached out to Lilia because I felt like she had a strong pulse of what was happening in the community. And we started talking and sharing ideas. And very early on, we discovered that many of the families, many of the days families, many of the families that I had met through her and through the work that we're doing were not eligible for the government benefits that were being offered. And it became pretty clear that there was an opportunity for us to help because many of the families worked in the service industry and they had lost their jobs and they were no longer able to work in compared to a lot of other people that were able to pivot and work at home. That was not true for a lot of our families. And it was really hard to figure out how they were able to survive during that time. So we were able to distribute rent relief, utility relief, and groceries through a program that offered, we wrote a grant and we were offered a substantial amount of money. And since then, we have continued the grocery program in response to what we have heard, because still our families are not eligible for any kind of benefits. And even though they're back at work, they're behind in their rent, they're behind in their paying their utilities, paying their cell phone bills. And we may consider cell phones as a luxury, but honestly, it's a way to stay connected with your children when your children are out in the community, or when you're at work and your children are at home, and having school at home instead of being at school, with the oldest child supervising all the younger children. It's a way to stay connected. So it's not it's no longer a it's a necessity to have now. So we continue with the grocery program in response to what we continue to hear. And it also created an opportunity for us to see children and youth and their families once a week over the last year and a half. So we deliver groceries to the residents, and we can find out what's going on. And oftentimes children do not have access to broadband, and they have received a computer from the school, but they need a printer, they need homework printed out, and they're very clever. They can take a picture of it and send it to their teacher once they've completed it, but they need it printed out. And before, they would go to the library and print it out, or they would use our computers at days when we were meeting in person, and they would download their homework, and we would make copies of it for them. But since they didn't have access to printers, quite frequently we had to have conversations with their teachers and ask their teachers to put us on their email list of when they were sending out the homework, so that we could print it out and then take it to the children on the Fridays and Saturdays when we were delivering groceries. And it was there that we learned a lot of other issues. Some of them didn't even have a table to do their homework on. So through the resources that we had available to us, we were able to deliver them folding tables that we take for granted, that were not available to them. So the pandemic really shed a light on the inequity that exists in our community on the West Side and on the East Side. And I remember a long time ago, Reverend Jerry Stinson talked about the tale of two cities, the West Side and the East Side. And I think about that quite frequently when I'm downtown and driving home, because it looks very different where I live compared to what I see in the Days community. We know that there's quite a few children that are undocumented. We know that because they're anecdotally over time. you hear them talking about where they were born. And quite frequently it's it's out of the country in Mexico someplace. And as I was hoping for a new president that would reinstate AB 540, and maybe Norma could speak to this a little bit more, or Harold can. It's my understanding that AB 540, which is an opportunity for undocumented youth to apply for a work permit, also be eligible for state grants, that allow them to go to college, that they're not eligible for that at this time. Childhood arrivals are not eligible. And when I think of the children at days that I know that were not born here and are now 16, I was hoping that we could help them file. And I know that that's not going to be possible at this time. And it probably won't happen anytime in the near future. And how are those children going to have access to higher education? They're guaranteed 2 years at Long Beach City College, but if they're eligible and qualify, they ought to have the opportunity to go directly into a four-year institution, which would be costly for them because they're not eligible for any additional financial funding. And nor are they supposed to work because they don't have a work permit, and they may not have a social security number, obviously. So those are some challenges that the youth face, and some of them don't even know that those challenges exist because they don't know what that means for them to not be born in the United States. So Days works on some of those issues to try to interrupt and reduce some of the challenges that they face. And we've been doing that for a long time, and we have had quite a few success stories. And several of those success stories have resulted in youth turning around and helping the next generation of youth that have similar stories to theirs, but also just to offer support and nurture the next generation. And that happened this past summer. One prior Days participant asked if he could come and help this past summer. And his family was hit very hard by COVID. And he came and organized sports for the middle school and high school students, specifically volleyball and baseball. And it was with Jorge's son's support, it was very successful. These children and youth and their parents have a lot to offer, and they have a very strong sense of community, and they also want their daughters and sons and children to be successful like all of us. And if there's a common thread, it is that everyone wants children to be successful, however they define that. And I think that they're doing the best they can. Sometimes they need some support, and so it's an honor and a privilege to be on the sidelines and be able, through the Days work and the partnerships that we have, to be able to offer some of those services for them, especially during the last 18 months, because it really highlighted the disparity that exists in the community. And maybe Norma, you could speak a little bit more about that as well. But Harold, Sebastian, Byron, I don't think I have anything else to say.
Thank you, Nancy. My understanding is that one of the things that Lilia helped organize and get funding for was a literacy program that runs parallel to DAYS, or helps DAYS parents not only learn English, but learn to read. That literacy is indeed a key to success in this society. So Lilia's been involved in that kind of thing, as well as everything else she does. I'd highlight that it was a couple of significant funders who approached DAYS to see if you could help distribute rent assistance and some monetary assistance to families that were impacted when COVID hit and they lost their jobs and they weren't eligible for other kinds of benefits. So a lot of good things, or a lot of potentially good things, came your way at DAYS to help get out that kind of relief to the community. And my understanding is that you are distributing groceries to at least 50 families. Is that correct?
50 families and over 200 individuals. But could I speak to the literacy program? Lilia was approached by a funder asking if she wanted to participate and develop a program that they would be interested in looking at, and then maybe fund. So Lilia and I worked together and came up with this literacy program, and it was designed to encourage parents to share their stories and talk to their children in their native language, share the culture that was so rich, and to encourage that bonding to happen. And Jorge participated in that, and so did Jorge's wife. He was very involved in the literacy program from its inception. And because it was so wildly successful, and it was all offered through Zoom, and they promoted it on Facebook, several teachers that worked in the Midwest emailed the group and asked if they could join and offer their services. So from the Midwest, they held workshops on Zoom for the literacy group in Long Beach, California. And that was amazing. And that probably would not have happened if we had not experienced the pandemic. And they came back the next semester because the funder came back and said to Lilia, this is really successful. We want to give you more money so that you can do it. You can decide how you want to do it. We decided that we were going to do a train the trainer program. Erlinda and another woman were identified as two potential facilitators. Erlinda is Jorge's wife, and they took what they learned and they shared it out with potential new members. And we were able to do that for the last 18 months. And it has been extremely successful. The children read with their parents online. There are activities for the families to do together to promote literacy, but also to share their stories and their culture in their native language. And recently we had the culminating activity where all the participants were awarded certificates from the 1st District City Council representative, and their children received backpacks and school supplies. So a big shout out to Jorge again for that participation. It was pretty amazing. Yes.
And I have the benefit of being in the same household with the president of the board of days. So I also know that you got special funding to do some outreach about COVID to try to dispel some of the misinformation and help get people vaccinated and get people in a safer place given the restrictions of COVID. That there were several families that were homebound. They were afraid to go out. They didn't want their children to go out and get COVID and bring it back home because there were people at risk. So you really did an amazing job of helping to educate the community about COVID and the vaccinations and things like that.
Yes, we did do that. And we were targeting certain hotspots in the city, but we chose downtown Long Beach in the 90802 zip code to do the work. And so we hired some of the youth to go out and canvass and to distribute flyers and to encourage people to get vaccinated and to talk to them about the pros and cons about getting vaccinated. We were able to get inside several of the downtown schools and distribute flyers and promote vaccination in those communities. And when we were initially given the opportunity to fill 50 slots to get vaccinated in February, we reached out to the Days community, and more often than not, we spoke to the oldest youth in the family, and they helped their parents register to get vaccinated. And then when the opportunity came for them to get vaccinated, they too got vaccinated. And that was pretty amazing to watch and to be a part of, because quite frequently youth would send a text message, "What about my uncle? Is he eligible?" And we would respond, "Yes, of course he is." And because of the work that we were able to do with COVID, we were able to hire several of our youth to lead the charge in that. One of them, perhaps some of you know, is Jesse Canteros, who's been with Days, I think he's 27 now, 26 or 27, and he's been with us since he was 13. And he recently was hired as a school counselor on Avalon, a member of a very, very small group that have been hired. And he helped facilitate us sending out text messages and promoting it on social media, along with another one of Days members, Rudy Cardosa, who was always a very talented person, and we didn't always do our best at utilizing his talent, but he's done a fantastic job with Days social media, and he was recently hired at Long Beach Forward to oversee their social media program. So yes, and we this summer we promoted the COVID vaccination through the summer program. So we were able to have long conversations about why it's important to get vaccinated. Stephanie Fisher, Kirsten Pickett's partner, introduced us to a physician at UCLA who held a Zoom meeting for our Leaders Long Beach group and spoke to all of us. There was probably 18 in the room at the time, and talk about the positives of why it's important to get vaccinated. And as a result of that, before the summer program started, 4 more youth went and were vaccinated. So all of our summer staff was vaccinated before we started. So those are a few other highlights. And like I have shared before, we can't really do this work without our partners and without people connecting us with other people. It's really important. So does that answer your question, Harold?
Yes, and then some.
Okay.
So I think it's important, and that's amazing information for people who may come and go from Third and Cedar and not really realize just what the outreach of Days Long Beach is to a community in that same zip code, 90802. The number of immigrants and documented and undocumented in that neighborhood probably is very, very high. And a lot of us just drive by and don't realize or don't see or don't think about just what's going on in that vicinity. But I think it's important now to maybe shift a little bit and have Norma talk about some of the national or the broader perspective of just what happens, what the needs are to address the immigration mess or the immigration complexity. For those of you who don't know, Norma is a Days board member and a professor emeritus of sociology at Cal State Long Beach. She has published and presented extensively on immigration reform, as well as founded the Long Beach Immigrant Rights Coalition, an organization that generated an immigrant-led movement to end the criminalization of immigrants and works to secure bold protections and opportunities, enabling the immigrant communities to thrive. So Norma, it's good to have you join us at this first Congregational Church Forum on Immigration. You and I did it once before, years ago, but it's good to be able to have you speak again.
Thank you very much. I love being at First Church and with First Church people. There's so many of you that I know and admire, and both for your, not just for your spiritual journeys and for your social activism, putting your values into practice. You've heard some really powerful stories between what you've heard at church. If you heard Carolyn's at church today, about being tapped on the shoulder and ending up having your life intertwined with that of an immigrant, in her case, Joaquin. And you've heard Jorge's story. If I got it correctly, Jorge, you came here 43 years ago. So despite tremendous sacrifices and obstacles, you did succeed in getting legalization and becoming a citizen. And look at all of the things that Jorge and his wife have given back to the community, way more than I'm sure what this country has given him. So to me, that's an example of the power of having a path to citizenship, which is one of the things I want to talk to you about today. And I'm really hoping that you will feel a little tug on your heart, as you did with the personal stories, or maybe a big tap on your shoulder, to send messages to 2 campaigns that I'm going to describe. One is a path to citizenship for perhaps almost 8 million of the 11 million undocumented. There is a real possibility right now in Congress. I'll tell you about it. And then the need to completely restore the right to asylum and repair the damage that was done by the Trump administration. So before that, if you add up all the years I've been involved in immigrant justice activism, it's a lot of years. It's really 41 years. And you might say, well, why is this woman who's not an immigrant so passionate about immigration reform, about working on the local level to accompany immigrants, to help days, do what it does for local families? Why would somebody be so hooked? And I think it's it isn't the fact that I'm was a professor and taught classes that came afterwards. It was because I got a tap on the shoulder. And I don't know how many of you, maybe you could just sort of raise your hands, have ever had a tap on the shoulder that sort of changed your life or made you go in a different direction? I'll bet there's at least half of you or 2/3 of you. It might not have been about social action, but you know, I was an activist in LA and in the early 1980s, and the Salvadorans and Guatemalans were coming in historically large numbers fleeing war. And the Reagan administration said they were economic refugees and were deporting them back to the danger that they had fled from. So there was no legal status, there was no protection. They should have had refugee protection. And at one point, 2 of the Salvadorans grabbed me and said, we need to meet with you. And they brought me to a group and they said, we need you. Sort of like those Uncle Sam recruiting posters, you know, that you can hardly ignore with him pointing the finger. And I'm like, well, what I don't know how to organize or do anything. And they said, well, yeah, but you have the privilege of citizenship. You have all of the protections of citizenship. You lived in Guatemala for a year. You know what the conditions are that we're fleeing from. And you speak Spanish, so we can talk to you easily. And you speak English, so you can talk to your fellow countrymen and go out to churches and temples. And at that time, we only had a couple of mosques, and tell people that what they're being told about us isn't true, that, you know, and tell them why we need protection. And so I did, because I couldn't. I didn't really feel like I had the option to say no. I felt, in a way, privileged to be called. And as a result of that, I came to know a lot of families, just like the families that Nancy's talking about in Days, and families like Jorge's family. And I became so embedded in the community and respectful of the contributions of the community, even people who didn't have access to legal status for many, many, many years. What they really were citizens de facto by what they gave back. They certainly had earned citizenship. There did come a moment in 1986 where some people were able to get legalized. We had IRCA, and I think 2.7 million finally did have a so-called amnesty and path to legalization. But a lot of the Central Americans that I worked with didn't qualify because of the time cutoff. So, so a lot of those folks, maybe a few of them have been able to get legal status over the years, but many of them either died not having legal status or still are waiting for legal status. So that's how it happened. And that tap on the shoulder became a big push, I guess you'd say. So what I'm hoping is that these 2 campaigns that I'll tell you about that can change the lives, not just of 1 person or 2 people, but really quite huge swaths of people. In the case of the Path to Citizenship, it's a possible 8 million people. And what I'm asking you to do is to make phone calls or tweets or whatever your form of communication to your elected officials are, and I'll tell you to whom. But first, let me tell you why. You may not be aware of it because there doesn't seem to be a whole lot in the news in California about it, but we are at a crossroads moment that we've been waiting for 35 years in Congress. There actually is a bill that passed out of the House Judiciary Committee that's part of the reconciliation package. And money has been allocated already for a path to citizenship. I mean, not a path to citizenship necessarily, but a legalization program. We're waiting for the decision of the Senate parliamentarian to rule whether it will or won't be allowed as part of the reconciliation process in the Senate. We actually thought she might rule last week, but she hasn't ruled yet. So we don't know. But this whole week, there have been vigils and marches and press conferences and letters from, 500 elected officials across the country, encouraging our elected representatives if she does rule in favor and says it can be included, and there is historical precedent for including it. It was included in a reconciliation package under a Republican administration, that we need every single vote, of course, in order for it to pass the Senate. So who would be included in this program? It would be all of the dreamers. The program Nancy was talking about was really Daca, not AB 540, because AB 540 still exists. That's the California version of some legal protections for undocumented youth. But the Daca program is frozen. None of the new youth who are becoming eligible can apply. And renewals, I don't think renewals can be submitted. So it's on the verge of disappearing, perhaps, if we don't have some kind of new legislation. So under this one, Daca and Daca youth would be included, Daca eligible youth would be included. Essential workers who had jobs that carried us through the pandemic. And 1 in 4 of those essential workers were California workers, by the way. Those who hold temporary protected status because they came from a war situation or disaster, some kind of disaster, and were given temporary protected status. And I'm sorry, I just forgot the other one. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, agricultural workers. So it's not everybody, but it's a huge number. And so what I want you to do, if you will, is make sure that both of your senators know that you support this path to legalization that's in the reconciliation bill, that you think it would be a benefit to California, which, by the way, has 1 in 4 undocumented immigrants of the entire nation and has, a huge number of the Daca kids are in California. California itself is an immigrant state. Immigrant heavy state. That you think would be a benefit to our community. And even though both of our senators say they're in favor of it, they need to hear from you, because when I call Senator Lowenthal's office, they tell me they hear every day from the anti-immigrant folks, but they don't hear from the folks that are in favor. And lest you think we're in the minority, for a long time, public opinion polls have shown the majority of Americans, ranging from 66% to 83% in the surveys, depending on how they focus the question, are in favor of a path to legalization for immigrants in this country. There's really a positive view of that process when it's explained. So it's the minority that is constantly blocking this and creating such fear and such confusion and such misinformation. And while this is this once in a generation moment, we have to pull out all the plugs and see if we can make it happen. There is a plan B if it doesn't happen, but you'll hear, we might as well work on plan A for the moment. So we'll need every vote, and we'll need the Biden administration to pull out all the stops using their influence as well to make sure we get the votes. And then the tie in the Senate, of course, would have to be cast by Kamala Harris. So that's the exciting possibility that we face. The other one is a more disturbing reality. And the reality is that while there have been some good things that have happened since the Biden administration has taken office in terms of asylum policies in the courtrooms and so forth, the things at the border have not changed very much. And given that Biden promised to, on day one, begin restoring and repairing the right to asylum, that the Trump administration had spent every day of their time and power trying to destroy, Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon, I think, laid awake every night trying to think of ways to make life more miserable for both immigrants here and immigrants at the border, including those who have a legal, United States has in its laws since 1980s, the right to asylum is, from the protection of being on US soil, is a sacred right, and it's a right that all the developed countries have signed on to. All the countries usually of the world have signed on to, but came about as a result of the experience of World War II, where Jews and others who were seeking refuge were denied it when they should have been granted it. And so this right is at the core of a democracy. It's the core of our values, that people have the right to due process. Our Constitution does not say due process only applies to citizens. It says that due process applies to all persons. And due process applies, and legal following the law applies to those who are seeking asylum. They have the right to make their case and to be heard in a fair and just system. What's happening instead is that people are being forced to stay or being deported back to or sent back to very dangerous areas of Mexico in particular. Once they request asylum, even if they don't get a fair hearing, or they go to detention and then they're sent back to these places to wait for their turn, or they're not even heard. There's over 6,000 incidences of violence that migrants either seeking to cross the border or seeking to request asylum have 6,000 plus incidents of rape, extortion, kidnapping, young girls being kidnapped and held for ransom or sent to be sex slaves, just all kinds of attacks. And what happens by forcing people, by sealing the border in this way? I mean, it's only sealed to those who want to request asylum. Other people pass back and forth every single day. And the title, the piece of policy that's being used is called Title 42, which is an obscure piece of public health policy that was first on the books in the 1800s, and somehow Steve Bannon and Steve Miller found it and decided this would be useful to use someday. It says that public health policy can dictate who can come to the United States and not. And the experts, all the health experts have said that this is not a source of coronavirus any more than anybody else who's crossing the border. People can be tested, people can be quarantined, people can be given vaccines. This is not a legitimate reason to continue Trump's Title 42, but it is being continued. A district court, federal district court, the other day, September 16th, just found it illegal again and said that it needed to stop. And the Biden administration is appealing their ruling. Well, we don't have time to go into why that might be. There are, basically, they have said, we need time. But I think it has a lot to do with the political capital. They're afraid of being tagged with admitting a lot of refugees who've been, criminal, whose image has been criminalized by the previous administration and a certain TV station that I turned on the other night and heard, that the Haitians were bringing chaos and destruction and COVID to this country, while upstanding Americans were going to Washington, D.C. to protest, and how we mistreat our own citizens and we don't worry about the Haitians. So there's so much more to share, but I need to wrap up. So who do we call about the path to citizenship? First, your two senators. You're welcome to tell whoever your congressperson is as well, because even if they're pro, it's always good for them to know you've got their back. And then I think it's important to tell Leader Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, because they're going to be the ones shepherding this whole process through. And just tell them, stay strong, stay strong. We don't want this eviscerated. We don't want to, there are a lot of people who will vote for the Daca, for the Dreamers, which is great. But what about the parents? You've heard about the parents in the DAYS program. There are many people that feel that, oh, well, you could deport their parents, or their aunts or their uncles or their grandparents, No, it needs to include more. And then for the standing strong on the right to asylum, that this is a sacred right, that this is the core legal right, and that the United States needs to remain a beacon to the world in due process and guaranteeing the law. I think the best thing, what the campaigns have asked us to do is, first of all, text or tweet or leave a phone message to the White House comment line for President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, that we need them to know that we are on the side of getting rid of Title 42. And then if you're ambitious, you can also text or tweet or put a comment on the comment line for Merrick Garland and at the Department of Justice, our Attorney General, and Alex Mayorkas, in charge of Homeland Security. Maybe let your committee there at First Church know, so that they know how many messages went out as a result of this forum. But wouldn't it be fabulous if we had 60 messages go out as a result of today's event? Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Thank you very much. Sebastian, you wanted to say something before we entertain some questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually, Kirsten is going to talk about two things that we are going to provide. So I'm going to actually just kick it over to Kirsten.
Okay.
Thank you, Sebastian and Harold. I am excited to tell you about something that has been in the works for a couple months, since many of you participated in the small group survey that we did earlier this summer. And this just seems like the perfect, everything's coming together for this. So let me tell you that shockingly, or not so shockingly, First Church is really into book groups. People at First Church like to read. And one of the themes that emerged for a theme for a book group was around social justice and activism, diversity and inclusion, immigration, reading bios of change makers. And so we are launching that book group next month. We have a first book that, oh gosh, I thought I had it right here ready to put up on my screen. And why isn't it giving me the choice? Oh, there it is. Okay. So This was recommended by people on the planning committee for this forum as a great place to start. It's a book called The Line Becomes a River, Dispatches from the Border. So this is the type of book that would be read in this book club. It'll meet monthly, and it'll meet over Zoom. And it will, again, start next month, be co-facilitated by two wonderful people. And so I wanted to let you know that that was coming and invite you to send me an email or a text to let me know if that's something you're interested in participating in. There are other book groups, but this one seemed so fitting for this group. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that I am going to send out to you after after we finish here, a handout. And the handout is going to tell you a little bit more about some action steps that you can take. So I'm going to show it to you real quick so you just see what's coming. It starts with some bios of people who have spoken and shared their stories and experiences and knowledge with us today, and then has a whole section on ways you can make a difference. And so this is, right here is some of the things that Norma was just suggesting. She gave us some really good information. So these are some action steps that you can take moving forward to affect change in terms of immigration reform. And thank you. Appreciate the time to tell you about that.
Thank you, Kirsten. Harold, let's do some Q&A.
Okay, so if you have a question and if you would like to type it into the chat, you could do it that way, or maybe Sebastian can help call on people who raised their hand politely and ask their question.
Yeah, it'll be best because there's so many people. It's going to be best if you use the raise your hand feature.
Okay, there's a raise your hand feature on the bottom
Reactions.
Under reactions. So if you can raise your hand if you have a question. I want to share that immigration is indeed a very complicated issue, but we are a country of immigrants. Maybe we have family that goes back hundreds of years or thousands of years on this continent. Those were the natives who may probably have the thousands of years. Others of us maybe 300 or 400 at the most, but we are a country of immigrants, and we really need to not forget that, is my opinion.
It looks like we have our first question from Mateo.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much. This is a fabulous forum. My question's actually for Jorge, and it's along the lines of, well, thank you, first of all, for sharing your story and the work you're doing. What are ways that other parents in Long Beach can support parents who are trying to manage these complex issues for their families? If you have any suggestions, there's so many ways different cohorts get together and ways parents can be allies in some of these processes.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you repeat again the question?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I was just wondering if you had any ideas of ways that other parents of kids who here in Long Beach in our school district can be allies, can be supporters of parents who are working with children who have different challenges and need different opportunities. How can parents be better allies to one another? If you have any viewpoint on that, and you may not. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I know a lot of people that likes to help, but the problem is that many of those people, they're not legal in the country, and that stops them from doing many things. But I know a lot of people because I've been serving as a volunteer in church, and yeah, they're really willing to help on many things, but that really stops them. And also when it comes to, for the education for the kids, And then there's a problem because yeah, there are many doors closed because no documents. Yeah, but I think if we all raise our voices and let the administration that like I got the benefit from the 1986-1987 amnesty program. That's when I became legal in the since 1978 till 86, 87. That's when I became legal. But yeah, we come like Harold said, we are people. This country is made of immigrants, and we all come to share, you know, like the best of us. And like I said, yeah, I know lots of people that would love to share, but the problem is that. So yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
So I have a question and just a little bit of a statement and then a question. So in that flyer that Kirsten is going to be sending out will be links to different organizations. One of those ways that you can help the organizations is by a donation. So there's donation aspects to sign up on those different sites. But Nancy, can you tell me, in addition to a financial donation, what are some of the things that people could do maybe to help the DAYS organization? Like what kind of help are you guys looking for?
Well, we always need help with grocery distribution. So on Thursday, when we received non-perishable items, we always need help sorting through the boxes and bagging rice and beans and putting the non-perishables in grocery bags. And then Friday, we bag fresh produce that we receive as an in-kind donation from another nonprofit. And then we deliver on Friday and Saturday. So we will certainly need support in that way. We are going to reinstate our tutoring program. We're going to try to offer an online platform as well as an in-person for those children that prefer one over the other. So there might be some interest in tutoring. We had a wildly successful book club last year where we had one person reading the story to about 8 youth, and it was really wonderful. They met on Friday night. So we're going to try to reinstate that. It's pretty clear that a lot of the children and youth are still not going out. And we don't know what November and December have to hold regarding COVID. So we're getting prepared just in case.
Thank you.
Jerry Stinson, you have the next question.
Yeah, either you, Harold, or Norma, things are happening so rapidly and chaotically concerning the Haitians. Is there something you know of we can do in that regard?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe Norma knows. They're moving really quickly to deport thousands of people. They're not extending any protection under temporary protective status. Usually after such a devastating thing as the earthquake in Haiti, they would extend TPS to Haitians, but they're not doing that. I don't know exactly what's going on, except there may be so much political pressure from the governor of Texas and the congressional delegation of Texas that says these people, we can't have this kind of invasion. So they may be moving quickly to just deport people to relieve the political pressure, but I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why they're moving so fast without giving them any kind of screening or interviews or anything.
Yes, Norma.
Norma?
I'm in the same position. I've been trying to read the last 3 days to figure out if there's a button to push, but there is a coalition called Black, which deals often specifically with the Haitian situation and others. They may have something more recent. It's really it's horrific to watch, It's so it's horrific to watch.
Thank you.
I've heard snippets of the news. A lot of these Haitians that made their way to the Texas border were coming up through South America. Many of them had been hired in construction projects in Brazil to help build stadiums for the World Cup. And then the economic crisis and COVID and everything happened after that, and they couldn't work in Brazil anymore. So the word gets out, get to the US border and you can be protected there. And that's not good information, but it's what's circulating with the Haitian population. And there was one report where the messages tell them wait at a certain bus station, and when the third bus comes through, that's the bus you take here. And all these routes are all worked out within the network of these migrants. But it's alarming to me that they've entered, or they've crossed the river, they're on US soil under the bridge, and they're not being given any kind of screening to see if they have asylum claims. So I don't know what we do except to write to Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, and to Ali Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security, to say this is appalling, what's happening, or to voice your opinion.
And Sebastian.
Okay. So I think we're about out of time. I just say that it's been a really powerful day for me after all these years of this kind of work. I greatly appreciate this church family and all you do and all your concern. Look for Kirsten's flyer handout about what you can do. Get in touch with those of us who have been involved in this today, and let us know if you have further questions or if you want to get plugged into additional resources or those kinds of things. Sebastian, did you have one more?
Yeah, I just have a final thought before we say goodbye. I just want to, on behalf of the Board of Social Justice Outreach, I thank you all for being here today, for one more opportunity to learn about important things that are happening around us. I want to give a special thanks to the planning committee who helped put this together. Actually, I'm the only one on the Board of Social Justice on this committee currently. And so it goes to show you that we can reach way beyond just within a board to put together something. So I thank Harold and Robert and Nancy and Kirsten and Clayton and Bob Kalasian for all being part of this planning over the last several weeks to bring you this amazing forum and an amazing opportunity for us to learn that there's things that need our attention right outside the front door of 3rd and Cedar. So thank you all for being here. We look forward to, I thank our speakers as well for being here today, Norma and George, and and Carolyn from earlier today. It is fantastic to have you guys be part of it. I always feel that hearing from people who live and experience goes so much more than just us sitting here talking words. So thank you for being part of this. And I look forward to hopefully having you guys be part of the book club that we're doing and just taking this to the next level. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. Harold, thanks for running the shindig for us. And we'll talk to you all soon. Bye, everyone.